The Rossi 92 is a handy, lightweight, affordable carbine that has proven itself reliable, relatively accurate, and hassle-free over the 1,000 or so rounds that I put through it. I thought I'd make a video about where I'm at with it right now, and some thoughts on its application, as well as the general application of a 357 lever action, after almost 2 years of ownership. This Rossi 92 is a 16-inch barrel, is 33.7 inches long, weighs about 5.5 pounds, and has an 8-round capacity. I kept my Rossi pretty straightforward, but made a couple additions, at least for now. The internals are completely stock, with the action starting to slick up nicely just from being cycled a lot. This is a Skinner scope mount, which was chosen mainly because it was the mounting option that sat the lowest. On the Skinner mount is a primary arms micro dot, a very simple, affordable red dot sight that has been surprisingly great, and even with my astigmatism makes for a much better sighting solution for me than the original semi-buckhorns on the Rossi. It's zeroed at 50 yards with 158 grain jacketed soft points and has worked flawlessly. This is the stock cuff from Hill People Gear, a great piece of kit that holds an additional 10 rounds close at hand. I also put this rubber stock extender on it to experiment with a different length of pull, but just like with shotguns, the shorter the length the better, for me, and I'll probably remove it sometime soon. The 92 has been very reliable for me. I pretty much have been feeding it 357s, mainly the 158 grain jacketed soft point load from PMC, Federal's American Eagle 158 grain jacketed soft point, and the Hornady Lever Evolution 140 grain XTP. The occasional 38 special will get in there too from time to time. I decided to not really pursue shooting cast bullets in it for now. There's just not much need. No drama at all on the reliability front. Maintenance-wise, I've only taken the gun down one time, and would really prefer to avoid having to do it again. I'm not the most mechanically inclined person, and these things are fairly complex internally. I think unless you're shooting really dirty loads, a fairly simple cleaning of the bore with a bore snake and just getting inside the action as best you can with a brush, some picks, and some patches will go a long way to keep it running. A few annoyances with the 92. As I mentioned in my first 92 video, I'm not a big fan of the stock sights. They just don't work well for my eyes, and I think even installing a rear peep or aperture sight would make a huge difference in practical accuracy. The loading gate is still kind of a pain to use, although much better than when I originally purchased the gun. I smooth out the sharp edges, but sometimes rounds get kind of hung up if you don't push them in at the exact right angle. They just require a little bit of finagling. The screws on the receiver start to loosen up after 50 rounds or so, which I find mildly infuriating. I have to remind myself to check them periodically while at the range. Now, from what I've gathered, this is just a lever action quirk. The rifles weren't really designed to be used for long strings of fire or high round count range trips. Things I plan on changing. Well, for starters, I definitely would like to get a metal follower for the magazine tube. The green plastic one just seems like an obvious failure point. It just makes sense to swap it out. I was able to get over my dislike of the manual safety, so for now that's going to stay. I just keep it off and usually store the rifle with an empty chamber or with a round in the chamber and the hammer on half-cock. I'm certainly not married to this sighting setup, though it works just fine. Even with the lower Skinner scope mount, I can't get as good a cheek weld as is comfortable for me, and don't want to add anything to increase the comb height. It's going to stay on for now, but I'm certainly open to experimenting with another set of irons or even a different optic. I'd really like to find a convenient way to mount a flashlight on the Rossi, something compact and lightweight like a TLR-7. I'm okay without a sling for the time being, but would be interested in seeing what kind of options are out there. In general, the R92 is probably the most fun gun I own. I just love shooting it, and it's quickly earning a spot in my personal favorite gun list. I'm even toying around and picking up another, maybe a 20-inch barreled variant, also in 357. Living in a band state, I spend more time than most pontificating about defensive firearm platforms that would provide a user hamstrung by crappy laws in their jurisdiction with a capable defensive tool. This is actually where my interest in the R92 first was piqued. I think there's plenty of utility in a lever gun chambered in a pistol caliber. I'm not a subject matter expert by any means, just a regular guy with an interest in personal defense and enthusiasm for firearms. So take everything I say for exactly what it is, a regular guy's opinion. A quick aside, Some time ago, I read an interesting book by a well-known gun writer, Mr. Grant Cunningham, titled Protecting Your Homestead: Using a Rifle to Defend Life on Your Property. The book pretty much focuses on defensive scenarios that the average homeowner or rural homesteader would be more likely to encounter than fighting foreign paratroopers ravaging the countryside, and how to effectively employ a rifle to deal with these situations. He makes the case for several different types of tools for homestead defense throughout, one being the .357 Magnum lever-action rifle. I've been using my 92 in this role, basically a simple, handy carbine setup that I can keep around the house for dealing with predators of the 2- and 4-legged variety, and engage with a lot more accuracy, range, and hitting power than with a handgun. I definitely think lever-action rifles are pretty sweet, but I also think that a .357 lever gun pales in comparison to pretty much any semi-auto centerfire rifle in an intermediate cartridge as a defensive firearm. AR, AK, you get it. But I think particularly in states like mine, where black rifles are heavily restricted or banned, the .357 lever gun makes a ton of sense. The .357 Magnum cartridge hits hard, especially out of a rifle-length barrel. Ammo is, or was, fairly common and affordable. Recoil is fairly low, and the rifles tend to be fairly low profile, lightweight, and they handle nicely. It also has the advantage of at least being able to share reloading dies with the several .38 and .357 revolvers I have laying around, and the capability of sharing ammo, though I tend to have separate .357 ammo for rifles and handguns. Obvious disadvantages include capacity, reduced mechanical reliability, both from a user-induced standpoint and the fact that there are more fragile parts than a more modern semi-auto, slow reload time, slower follow-up shots, and basically no modularity in terms of setting the rifle up to your preferences. When it comes down to it, if you can run the gun confidently and make your hits with it, you'll probably be good to go for the vast majority of defensive scenarios you could face as a civilian. There are obvious outliers, and I truly believe you should be as armed and as capable as possible. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are millions of people in this country who cannot remain within the bounds of the law and own an AR. I see the .357 Magnum carbine as a potential tool for those people. That's the latest update on my R92, folks. I appreciate you letting me ramble about lever guns. Have a great day.